So, I'm pretty sure most of you have heard at least once before that Kirby has a much deeper and darker lore than what may originally meet the eye. The villains in these games can have very well developed stories and describe their motives for what they're doing in depth, such as Haltman, Sectonia, and Magalor, which can make for pretty good characters, especially when you consider these characters are from a 2D platformer like Kirby, a genre that is generally not known to be story-driven. And then we have Marx.
Look for the Gummy Bear album in store.
The happy communist boy that for some reason is an absolute fan favorite in the franchise. And despite his massive fanbase, he is definitely not one of those well-written Kirby villains I was praising before. Hell no. If anything, he's one of, if not the most poorly written out of all of them. And now that I've went and pissed off around 70% of the Kirby fanbase, now would be a pretty good time to tell you why he's terribly written, wouldn't it? Alright, so before I get started, let me give you guys some context about who Marx is in case you don't know or need a quick refresher. Marx made his first and biggest appearance in Kirby Superstar, who asked Kirby to help the Sun and Moon stop fighting by collecting all these things that will summon Nova, a clockwork star that can grant a wish to the person who summoned it. Simple enough story, decent premise, gives the hero a motive and a goal to reach. But what if I told you this is the last time we see Marx until the very last second of the game? Yup, not a single word from this guy. Once you do collect all of the things to summon Nova, and right when he asks you to make a wish, this prick pops out of seemingly nowhere and takes the wish for himself, and wishes for world domination. And big surprise, Marx was the villain all along, manipulating Kirby and using his superior power for his own personal gain. Yeah, I think I forgot to mention that Marx also started a trend of the surprise plot twist villains that show up at the last second that Kirby loves for some unknown reason. Getting back on track, however, once Marx does gain his newfound powers, he tries to destroy Kirby once and for all, since he is the only thing standing in between his goal of world domination. And Kirby was, in fact, powerful enough to destroy Marx. Go figure. And then to top it all off, Marx gets fucking yeeted straight into the clockwork star and they both blow up. The end. Now, from this point forward, this is where the details start to get a little bit iffy, with overall confusion whether or not the following bits are canon or not, so just take this bit with a grain of salt. So, it's highly questioned whether or not Marx died in the explosion with Nova. He was shown to be a lot more pale, almost a piss yellow color, compared to his usual purple. His eyes looked completely lifeless, and overall looked like he had no control over his own body. Hence why he looks like he's just floating in space like a lifeless twat. But then, he somehow absorbs all the power of Nova and comes back as Marx's soul. An even more powerful and insane version of Marx. So, did he survive the explosion? Is he some sort of zombie that was revived by Nova? I don't know. It's confusing. And confusion is usually not a good trait to have attached to a character. And surprise surprise, he is defeated again by Kirby. And this time when he's defeated, he splits in half, turns a disgusting magenta color, and lets out a screech that petrified and gave nightmares to many people playing the game like myself. So, now Marx is dead for sure, right? After being sawed in half and everything like that?
Well, yes, but actually no.
Because he somehow appears again as Star Allies. What?
That's it? What do you mean? That's your emotionally scarring backstory? That's your great tragedy?
But now the
Dark Knight and Marx
are getting in the game. It's giving me a
huge boner?
No, I was gonna say it's giving me a reason to live.
Actually, both of those are kind of awkward.
Shut the fuck up! Nobody asked you, you motherfucker!
He fucked my wife, so guess what? I'm gonna fuck the earth! That's right, this is what you get! My super laser piss!
Ew! What the fuck?
I sawed this boat in half!
take all that stuff I just talked about and dissect it to find out why Marx is terribly written. The first, and probably the most obvious problem I have with him, is that he has very little screen time for playing such a major role as the main villain of the game, leaving the character very little room to actually develop. He has a grand total of like 1.5 minutes of screen time and like 3 sentences of dialogue, both at the very beginning and end of the game, which is nowhere near enough to make a remotely fleshed out character. It's like trying to make a sandwich, but you're using only bread. Like, where's all the good stuff that makes the sandwich actually worth eating in the middle? Just the bread tastes kinda dull and boring, doesn't it? Due to his very limited screen time, we don't really know what his motives were at all, which is kind of a necessary thing for a villain to have to be a villain. Hell, even when you type into Google, what makes a good villain, the first thing that comes up is, it simply means your bad guy needs a reason for being the person he has become. If the villain isn't working, it's because you made him the villain only because he's a bad person. He does evil things because he's evil. And this perfectly sums up Marx as a character. Evil because he is evil. Characters that are bad just because they are is a very lazy design for a character. Even the most basic antagonists in the same game have motives that are explained. Here, let's take a look at Revenge of Meta Knight, another sub-game in Kirby Superstar. Meta Knight wants to take over Dreamland in order to make Dreamland less lazy. Although it's a very odd and specific motive, it's still there, and explains why he's doing the things he's doing. Even more recent villains in the franchise have their fair share of motives. Like in Return to Dreamland, Maglor wants to exploit the powers of the Master Crown to gain power. In Triple Deluxe, Tyranza only wants to please his queen and will do whatever it takes. In Planet Robot, President Haltman originally did everything he could to try and get his daughter back after he lost her in a freak accident. This lets all of these characters have a fair amount of depth as antagonists. I can't say the same about Marx though. Marx wanted to take over the world, that's it. Nothing else? Nothing about why he wants to take over or destroy the world? No explanation on how he somehow survives after getting his ass kicked by Kirby twice, and after surviving a massive nuclear level explosion, and then somehow becoming one of Kirby's pals and star allies. What the fuck? How the hell did we go all the way from here to here? Where is all of the context that explains all of those events I just mentioned before about Marx? Did the writers just throw their hands up in the air and say, oops, I guess we forgot to give Marx an actual story, but let's just slap him in Star Allies with absolutely no explanation on how he got there? Great idea! It goes back to my sandwich analogy from before. It's just the bread. There's nothing in the sandwich. It tastes like complete shit! Okay, and getting back to the main focus of the video, how do we get from Superstar to Star Allies? How do you go from being a villain to Kirby's friend? So let's head over to Star Allies for a second and see if there's anything giving us any hints over there. And first of all, yes, I am fully aware that it's still up in the air whether or not Dream Friends are canon or not, and I really don't feel like opening that can of worms right now, because it's just a big mess, honestly. But for the sake of argument, let's just say they are. Let's just say they are 100% canon. 11 out of the 13 Dream Friends do have their reasons to be there helping Kirby. They either have been friends of Kirby for God only knows how long now, like Bandanity, King Dedede, Meta Knight, Gooey, Adeline, Brick, Kine, and Ku. Or previous villains that made up with Kirby and are all buddy-buddy now, like DeRoach, Magalore, Tyranza, and Susie. Hell, they even managed to make the 3 Mage Sisters being Dream Friends make sense within the context of Heroes to Another Dimension. The only 2 Dream Friends that have absolutely no reason to be there at all are Dark Meta Knight and Marx. Neither of them have any evidence of making up with Kirby, or anything even saying how they got there in the first place. Because if you can't remember, both these characters were left in kind of a pickle when we last checked up on them. With Dark Meta Knight being trapped within a dimensional mirror, and Marx being presumed dead. And that's another one of the problems I have with Marx. There is absolutely nothing telling us on how he got from Superstar to Star Allies. There is absolutely nothing confirming if him being in Star Allies is even canon. Is he dead? Is he alive? Is he some sort of freakish zombie like I mentioned before? I don't know, you don't know, fucking no one knows the answers for sure. There's just absolutely nothing to talk about with him. There's no details to dissect and analyze. There's nothing. Nope, no depth, no layers, no nothing. And characters are like onions, they need to have layers. But Marx's story is about as interesting and in-depth as a piece of cardboard. that being not very. And this is coming back to why Marx is even in this video to begin with. He has absolutely no character compared to almost every other major character in the entire Kirby franchise, despite his massive popularity. Everything involved with this character is a massive mosh pit of confusion, poor writing, and is overall lacking in comparison to the rest of the Kirby cast. Instead of being a nice onion full of layers, Marx is just a bread sandwich. No pickles, no ham, no onions, no nothing. Nothing to fill that empty bread sandwich. And for that reason, the sandwich tastes like complete trash. I give Marx 1 out of 5 sandwiches with the label of underdeveloped. So yeah, that's Character Crisis for Marx. This is a new series I came up with, you know, just to take a look at some pretty bad characters in games, dissect them, analyze them, and, you know, see why they're terrible. So, you know, if you like this idea, if you hate it, if you have some other miscellaneous feeling about it, just let me know. There's a comment section for a reason. But till the next one, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.